Hello, everybody. Mind's Eye Visual Guitar Methods here for a real crazy undertaking here. I don't know how this is going to go, but this is basically some crazy idea I had for a video today. It's basically like the culmination of everything I've learned on my journey here, all in one lesson. It's probably going to be like really long here. So, but let's see how fast I can get through it. So let's go over this stuff really fast and hopefully I'll figure out a way to put this on my Patreon page so members can download this kind of like cheat code that will get you basically everything you need to know about music theory. And then we're going to even get to some fretboard diagrams, how this directly translates to your fretboard and just a whole bunch of information. And there's, just as I was getting ready to do this lesson, I even realized one more thing I wanted to add that I forgot. So maybe I'll add it at the end of the lesson. But anyways, tons and tons and tons of information to go over with today. So let's get right through this. All right, so starting at the very top here, notice these downward arrows. What this means is that every one of these lines, this whole thing works in a way that this is all 12 notes going across here. And everything in a downward row correlates together. So like, for example, just thinking of the root here, the root, we've got do of do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. If we were talking about a keyboard, we have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, so you can relate, major scale concepts to a keyboard if you need to. Helps if you're playing along with a keyboard, if you're composing, if you use a DAW and you have a keyboard, all that stuff. And then, so the chord numeral would be 1. The note C, it's a major. Mode code, it's Ionian. Chord functions would be the tonic, and so on and so forth. So let's start. So now that we know that everything goes, top down. The 2, it's the minor 2, minor. Do, re, it's re. The 2 is the re. Anyway, so now let's go line by line. All right. So there's only the basically very first thing to know is that there's only 12 notes, even though there's a piano has, this times 88 keys, but it's only this. All right. And a guitar has all these frets. But there's only 12 notes that you're responsible at any given time, and you're usually trying to just play a 7-note scale at any time. So we got, you can see here everything is, the information is 1 through 12, and then it goes over to a 1 again. And we've got that in between, some kind of drew some lines there. All right, so the next is intervals. The next thing you'd want to know is intervals. And I put a little color coding on this thing. There was a little bit of rhyme to it at one point. I kind of decided that I like brown for the root. It's like the earth. I like green for the 5 because it's like the grass that grows. It's like, the earth and the vegetation going together, and then the blue sky for the thirds. Like either it's a dull blue for a minor chord or a bright blue for a major chord, and then everything else just kind of, the funky 7 is in purple. Orange is kind of a 6 to my eye, but you do whatever you do as far as your, whatever it's called, synesthesia, where you relate colors to notes and perhaps the all 12 intervals. But anyways, it doesn't really matter. It's just the fact that it does differentiate them. But going across, brand new people, they don't know, and you're always hearing, well, this is the flat 2, and this is this is the that. So get this understood, and everything that everybody's talking about becomes much easier. I remember being new and I didn't know any of this, and it wasn't too long before I was like, okay, yeah, it's root, flat 2, 2, then the flat 3, then the regular 3, then the 4, and this is going up your fretboard. Root, from if we consider this the root, just make up any note. Here we're using the C. The flat 2, the 2, the flat 3, the 3, 4, flat 5, 5, sharp 5, 6, flat 7, 7, back to C. Sing them. All right, so even if you can't sing like I can't. So the spelling alternates. There is later. There's some other ones that aren't listed here that I have listed down below that we'll get to. But for all practical purposes, sometimes you'll hear like a flat 9 and a 9, and that's just really the doubling up it's an octave higher than a flat 2. So if this was my, well, I wouldn't really play this note with it. Those notes together, that'd be really crowded and kind of funky sound, and that would be like yuck. But I might play that way up here as part of a chord. You know, flat 2 is going to have a pretty sharp dissonant sound, but maybe I want it. Maybe I want a 2. Maybe I want a flat 3. Maybe I want a 3. But they're all going to be up here, and if I had a chord with a couple of intervals and then that flat 2, it might be the flat 9, or let's say I just was trying to play a 9 chord here, or like here's a D minor 9. That's actually the 2, C, D, but it's would be considered a 9, and that's where this 9 chord stuff comes from. Thirds always stay thirds. A 4 you might hear as when you hear an extension called an 11, you're playing a 4 way up high. The flat 5, now this is also could be a sharp 11, but I listed it as sharp 4 because you'll also hear that too. And how this works is you say, well, what is it? How do I know if it's a flat 5 or a sharp 4? You know, and why does the same note have a same name? Well, it depends. If you need a 5, if you've got a 1, 2, 3, and a 4 in what you're, playing around with, and the next one is a 5, but you've flatted the 5, then it's a flat 5. If you have a scale, you have a 1, a 2, a 3, and a 5, and you've taken the 4 and moved it up, it's a sharp 4. Does that make sense to you? If you've done something with a 6, it's a flat 6. If you've modified the 5, it's a sharp 5. That's how those things work. And the 7s just stay the 7s. They're strong enough to just always be 7s. Strong enough for, that'll... The deodorant commercial popped in my mind. Because the young people won't know it, I won't waste your time with it. Solfege. I think it's called solfeggio, whatever it's called. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do is the next thing you want to know. Corresponds with the root. The 2, you can see that down here in the chord numerals. Know your Roman numerals. I didn't write it out as regular because this is important. So 1, because you can also differentiate when you see the lowercase Roman numerals, that's minor. So 1, minor 2, minor 3, major 4, major 5, minor 6, diminished 7th. All right, so do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. We got that. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E. So I mean, the piano keyboard is there. You get it. There's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 for the Roman numerals, and this is where. So this is your understanding you use when you hear someone talking about a 4, 5, 1. Okay, they're talking about the 4, the 5, and the 1 in the key of C. That'd be F, G, and 1 for C. Or a 2, 5, 1. The 2, the minor 2. You say, oh, okay, what's that 2 again? Yeah, it's minor. And then the 5, G, and the 1, C. So 2, 5, 1 in the key of C is D, G, C. You're going to the 1. So that's why it's called the key of, considered the key of C. All right, so moving on. In this keyboard, I doubled it up so you could see all the sharps and flats, as well as just the regular note names. It's like, hey, what are the black keys? Now, the black keys do this flip-flop thing again. So what I'm trying to show here with the arrows is if you take the C and you're considering the C as a raised up note, this black key is going to be called a C sharp. If you're considering that this key is flattened down and you're using this black key because of that, it's a D flat. So that's how these have enharmonic names. D sharp, E flat. F sharp, G flat. G sharp, A flat. Just think about the note before it. A, it's A sharp. It's also B, B flat. So anything between A and B is A sharp, B flat. Between G and A, G sharp, B flat. F sharp, G flat. Alright, so moving on from there. It's helpful to know the way that the chords, the function of the chords as you're moving through the scale. So listen, I'm just going to play all major chords in the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. That sounded a little bit off. Let's try this. So all the notes that I played were following the C major scale. And when they did that, some became major, some became minor. How do you know that? You could memorize this. M for major. Thought my microphone stopped there. So the 1 is major, 2 minor, 3 minor, 6 here, 4 major, 5 major, 6 minor. This is if you're just considering triads. 7 diminished. Back to major. So what's the way that all works? Check this out here. So when a chord has a major third in it, chords have a root, a choice. A triad has a root. Skip all these 2s. Put a choice of third in there for major or minor. That's minor. Flat is minor. Regular is major. And then the 5, the green 5 for a regular triad. The root and the 5 always sound good together. Very harmonious. And the 3 either brings a sad or a happy. Now, you can see here that if we only have 2 notes in between, we're at a flat third. If we move up from the root, 1, 2, 3, on 4 is a major third. So let's look at the C here. Chords come from skipping a note, because a note together is just a next note, but skip a note and it's harmony. All right. So from C, when we go to E, we can see it lined up right here that E is a major third away from C. So that's a major chord. Let's take the D. We skip over to F. You'll notice that there's only 1. The F occurs on 1, 2, and 3. So if we go back to root here and we go root, 1, 2, 3, you can see it's a flat third. So the F is a flat third away from D. So the third from D, F, A, or in D, F, A, the third is a flat third. So D is a minor chord. So that's how this pattern emerges. And after you play with it, and when you're new, you're like, wow, that's going to be hard to memorize. I don't think I'll ever get that. But it takes a couple of days of messing around with these chords and trying to see how they fit in your favorite song, or making chord progressions up that you're like, oh, okay. And they all make an L shape on your fretboard. So like 1, 4, 5. So if the 1 was, let's go to C here. So if I go C, below that is F, and up a whole step is G. Now if I go down 3 frets, so here's where we're starting. We go 1, 2, 3. That same L shape makes the 6, the 2, and the 3. And if you did all the counting, we had 1, 4, 5, 6, 2, 3. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So where's the 7? Don't worry about it. It's a diminished chord, and you'll learn that eventually. Mode code. So now the modes. If I play this major scale, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, so no need to go over it now. But if I just took my D though and made it the bass note, thumping with the drum beat. When I play the same C major scale, because the second note is being exemplified as the root via the bass, and perhaps the keyboard is playing that sad minor, D chord as, related as it should be, then this is going to sound Dorian. The music would sound the same for whatever, when you make one of these the root notes, that's called, you're making it the tonic. So the next one, if you did E, would be Phrygian. And you could do that with Lydian. You could make it Mixolydian. You could make the C major scale Aeolian or Locrian just by choosing one of these as the tonic. How do you make a tonic? Very simply, for rock, just thump a bass note of the corresponding interval of the scale and put it to a rhythm. And you'll have an instant modal backing track. Very basic, but modal. And if you correspond it, put the corresponding chord on a keyboard, you're in. And I'll tell you how to later. We're just going to see how to play that any mode all across the fretboard. So chord functions. Now maybe we'll go a little faster here, because at the end of the day, just copy this down and you can study it and learn it for yourself. But this should, maybe in case there's a little bit of like, well, what the hell does that even mean? This will breeze over a little bit. So chord functions, you should know this. You should know that the 1 is a tonic. The 2 in a scale is going to be a ST, a supertonic. Now notice here, of course, also here it says see the legend, because you're seeing me and I'm a legend. No, sorry, that's not true. Down here we have the legend, and with the tonic, subtonic, mediant, subdominant, dominant, submediant, and leading tone. So this is a little bit of information about, for like the melody, like leading tone. So when I get to that, where does that want to go? Really wants to go back to that. It's a leading tone for that reason. And we started here. C was our tonic. Now the rest of these I consider more for like chord progression. So this would be my subtonic that goes back to a tonic. This is a mediant. Might pair it with my submediant, mediant. You can kind of hear those have a reasonable sound together. Subdominant, dominant. Subdominant, dominant always leads to the tonic. That's 4, 5, 1 that we were just talking about. And that covers those. So that's all of these right here in order of their correspondence to the tones of the scale or the white keys of the keyboard. So tonic, supertonic, mediant, subdominant, dominant, submediant, leading tone. All right, so organizing ideas is a way to get things memorized real easy. So if you put your tone, consider the note behind it is that leading tone. It leads you back to the T that leads back to the do, and then this is the re, and re wants to fall back to tonic. So like surrounding the tonic is so strong, both notes surrounding it has something to do with the tonic. Here we have the third is the mediant, and that third chord is not used as popularly in like say pop music. So you can consider that like kind of on its own, but it has that relationship to the 6, the 3 and the 6 for mediant and submediant. Now the 4 and the 5 are kind of related. They're next door neighbors, and it's subdominant and dominant, and there you have everything. So you have your dominance at 4 and 5. You have the 3 notes around the tonic, and so that just really leaves the mediant and submediant to learn, and it becomes easier that way. Key distance. Now this one here is really, really a special little code here. You really won't find this on anybody else's channel. I went through and figured it out one day, and then when I found out, like, my question was how many notes are shared for each of the 12. If I was just to try to change to all 12 keys, like how many notes are shared? And so we have once I figured it out, I said, hey, I think there's a little pattern there. And when I wrote it out, I could see that it's if you can write this out in a circle's back on itself. You can see how it goes root, the root note. If I go up do a scale a half step up from the root. So from here's C. Here's C sharp. That shares two notes with the root. And you can see that right here. Go to this keyboard. We'll go black key for Do, black key Re. Mi is on F, so there's our white key that's shared with our white key, original key C major, so it shares F. And then there's a half step there for Fa, and we have a black key, So, La, and then T would be on C. So F and C are the two notes. Now without a keyboard handy, you may not be able to actually know without a little fiddling around which exactly are the notes that are shared. But there is a way to know that, but it's beyond the scope of this lesson. Anyway, so it goes, if you move up one more, when the C major scale and the D major scale share 5 notes, those are closely related scales. Then you got 4 and 3. Those are like your jazz changes. Those are going to be found in your progressive and your fusion music. And then we have a 6-note scale. That's going to be found in a lot of pop music. And the key changes in like Pink Floyd songs are very commonly borrowing from these 2 keys that share the 6 notes with the original tonic. And lo and behold, what are those? The most common 4 and 5 come into play again, that 1, 4, 5 relationship. No wonder it's so strong. Those keys as separate keys are almost the same key because they only differentiate by 1 note. There's only 1 note difference between C and G, for example, and that is the F sharp. So anyways, you get to this tritone here, this flat 5's what everyone is calling the tritone. That would have been handy to put somewhere, but I didn't. Anyways, that's only, of course, a really our tough interval like that's only going to share 2 notes. Then 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. So you can see it's 2, 5, 4, 3, 6, 2, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. So it's oh my God, I got that backwards. 3, 4, and 5. So you can see how it's backwards. 2, 5, 4, 3, and then 6, 2, 6 in the middle, like Mazda 626, if you remember that old car. And then 3, 4, 5, 2, root. All right, moving on. Fretboard color code. This is going to help you with this little fretboard pattern that you should memorize to master your fretboard. So here we got all the intervals of the major scale, root 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and how do they lay out on your fretboard? There's always a square of notes. Here it is in the key of C. 7, root, 3, 4. So 6, 7, root, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. The square. And that's a navigation square that you can use to go in and out of, I know this, if I found my navigation square, I'm in a scale shape at the top here, I know is Aeolian. Using that, I'm going to slide up and move, got the square down here. It puts me up in a shape I know is Dorian. In this square, I move into Phrygian. And I'm back up at Aeolian, getting me back to that C note. That's why it sounded complete, because it went through the C major scale and we ended up at C. All using this concept right here. You can notice that this shape always has these standards. It's root, the 2, the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5, the 6, the 7, and the root. So if I need to find a flat 7, it's going to be there. If I need to find my flat 3rd for some reason, it's going to be there. Sharp 4, flat 5, on and on. So we got Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixed Lydian. So if I'm in the key of C, I need Aeolian scale. I'm going to play that chord. If I want the Dorian scale, or Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian. One, C. Two, Dorian. Alright. And so then you can see the corresponding C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And so wherever you move that, if I move that up on some place where I don't even know what notes there are, I still know it's Aeolian, Locrian, Ionian, Dorian, Lydian, or Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, Locrian. We were on E flat there. So once I got to my green note, my root, I looked at the fret I was on. I'm one fret down from the 12th fret on the 6th string. We know the 12th fret is E. I was on E flat. Perhaps D sharp. Alright, so moving on from there, a diagram like this can tell you about the major. I need a major chord. I need something to do with major. I'm always going to be thinking that shape. Unless I'm going across the G to B string, then I have to move up one on the B string. So what was here is going to be here. Just that straight up and down now. So in other words, I should have typed this out. It would be like root and third instead if we were dealing with the shifty shifter there. So root and third, just to be kind of annoying. Alright, so root and third, if I'm thinking minor, so I knew to make that minor 9 chord earlier. Pink Floyd Dogs. Oh no, I'm on E. That sounds more like it. Alright, so yeah, minor 9 chord. Alright, so there's other ways to think about this root and third interval, but we're going to get to that. So here's a legend, because like I said, in my own mind, some kind of legend. From the 1, Ionian, to Dorian, you can see you see an I, you see a D, a P, an L, an M, an A, an L. You can use this for your own notes and stuff. And the corresponding chord function. So Ionian is the tonic. The Dorian, you're playing off the subtonic. Phrygian, median. If you're like, you start out on the 3rd chord and you're jamming for a while, you got something with a guitar solo, and it's just thumping the 3rd note of the scale, then you have a Phrygian. But if you're going to change chords, you're going from the median. Maybe you would choose the 6 as a good sounding chord to go to, because that would be the submediant. Maybe it's you can choose anything you want, but maybe it sounds like the dominant isn't really the chord that has that kind of somewhat pleasing or less familiar sound, because it's not really related as well as, say, the 3 to the 6. All right, and we just heard that a couple seconds ago. I won't play it again. Now this modal organization. So when it comes to modes, you really want to know this organization. But let's be clear about something about modes really quick. Because modes, if you don't know anything about modes, they sound enticing, and they are, because they can be a little kind of a cool jam session thing. But modes are sometimes, when you don't know anything about what modes are, you've heard it brought up with jazz, modal jazz, right? So you tend to think that modes, this is going to be the key to sounding like Jens Larson and everything he teaches. Well, I hate to break it to you, but nothing could be farther from the truth. Jazz is jazz. Jazz is this is the basic information that will help you understand what jazzers are talking about, but you got a long way to go and you got to start playing with rhythm, really. Um, to be honest with you, there's almost just as much. The kind of, to me, I would tell a student that the secret to jazz really is learning to be in the pocket of the rhythm just as much as you study any music theory. People think theory will get them to jazz. What my journey has taught me is that all this stuff is important. You can know all the theory in the world, you won't touch jazz without rhythm and the understanding of rhythm, and then the understanding of chords that are happening over that rhythm. Okay, enough being said there. So what are modes then? Modes are like a steady jam session. You can make a lot of cool rock music. I think Joe Satriani would be like the best example of, his music isn't just modes, but at the same time, you can create a lot of that guitar jam rock by making modal music. So it kind of means really jazz is like happening. You've got to be really intelligent with chord changes. Modes, you don't have to. Modes are just staying static over one chord. So that's why they can get kind of boring and they only have a limited use. You can get probably 16 bars out of a modal jam. Maybe 24. I don't know if you're a really good soloist and maybe you got a couple of different instruments that are going to be soloing. You can get an extended modal jam. But it's just the same chord. So it's one sound, so it's gonna eventually get like, hey, can we move on here? So that's the deal with modes, but they still have moments where they do sound cool, so this is what you want to know. How to understand them. Well, first, organize the things, the tones. Know this. There's basically only 3 types of modes you need to know about. All 6 modes found in the major scale can be grouped by 3 and by 2. So here's the 3: brighter, natural, and darker. And then there's 3 in the brighter, natural, and darker. 3 of the 6 modes you need to deal with are major, 3 are major, 3 are minor. So when you organize them, they get so much easier to memorize. You say, Marco, there's 7 notes in the major scale, so one of them is missing here. Yeah. That's that leading tone, that mixolydian. It does have a mode called Locrian. Nobody uses it to jam in. The choice is yours if you want to spend any time with it, but you would soon find out why nobody uses it. It's not going to really be an effective sound other than leading back to the 1, or maybe you can figure out something with it. I'm sure there are some videos that you can search that will show you some songs that are questionably using Locrian, but they tend to be questionable whether it's Locrian or just Phrygian. Anyways, I think it's Bjork or something like that. Love Bjork. One of the best ever. Anyways, so Lydian, you can see by the eyebrows here and the smile, we're dealing with one of the major modes. Here we're dealing with one of the minor, and the eyebrows are kind of, it's happy, but a little bit melancholic. This is happy normal, and this is happy with a little twist to it. Party time happy. So same with Phrygian. That's, boy, look at that. It's really darker, sad. This is normal sad. Stairway to Heaven. Think, Metallica or something, or perhaps some Santana sometimes. For that, maybe more of a Latin or Egyptian sound, whatever you can coin it. Aeolian, your Stairway to Heaven, regular, what is it? Carry On My Wayward Son, I think, probably. I don't know. Pretty normal for rock. And then Dorian, Dream of the Blue Turtles by Sting, or some kind of very rainy day, sad, Dorian. All right, light at the end of the tunnel, sad, Dorian. So they relate on brighter, natural, and darker like this. All you need to do to get these onto your fretboard and under your fingers, so easy, is to understand the pentatonic box here in gray. orange gut notes. There's 2 in the bottom box for X and Y, and 2 in this middle tic-tac-toe box that hang off the side for the same X and Y note, and the same copycat things at the top. And you'll see that each one of these patterns, notice that the balanced one, the natural, is balanced. It has 1 note on the left and 1 note on the right. This one has, basically, this top note is lowered. So you've got that Dorian sound. Actually, these are backwards. I fucked up here. Sorry. Maybe I can fix that right now. Hold on a second here. Dumb assery. Here, we're going to have to do this. Hold on a second, everybody. Mr. Mind's Eye was not very mind-eye. Alright, so I'm going to cut that out. I'm going to paste that over here for a second. And... Alright, that didn't work for some reason. Alright. Why the fuck is that happening? Paste, please. Okay, hold on a second here. Okay, hold on a second here. And now it worked. That was weird. Alright, so now I'm going to take this one. Whoops. Alright, so we're making the video longer than we needed to and wanted to. So we're going to cut that. We're going to paste this one. Alright, something weird just happened, but we're going to try to deal with this. Paste that one over there. I'm going to cut this one out here. And I got to do everything here, so we're going to cut it. And we're going to paste it. Because we like pasting. You know what? I'm going to paste it. Over here is where I should have pasted it. But alright, that's good enough. So anyways, at least these are on the right side now. If not, not really lined up very well. I'm going to try to do this. Do 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 do. I get around. I get around. I get the hell out of town. 'Cause they're chasing me off. Because my lessons suck. Do 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 do. I get around, round. Woo. We're in the 50s now. Alright, so a little bit more accurate there. So you got this one, you know, your natural one is here. Darker, you move everything down and you get the darker, and then you move everything up. Study this on your own. There's other lessons about it on this channel, but that's the basics of it. And so you say, well, what about how does this one shape work for both Dorian and Lydian? Well, it's because of the this is the minor. And I did that. Good Lord. Let's put that Dorian. Lydian, that's right, and this would be P, and this would be M. I could have left that where they were. Alright, so, Dorian and Lydian. So, for example, now you know you can do this. You can pick any note. Let's say I want, pick something. I can't hear you guys out there, so I'm going to say B flat Dorian. Alright, so here is my minor side of my pentatonic, and you said D flat, so I'm going to put that note on D flat, and I got my pentatonic in my mind, and I've got my so there was a Dorian melody. Because I had that. There's the raised 6. Because it's not the standard flattened 6, that would be in the Aeolian. So that is the one note change that you see that's different, and that is what makes it, gives it that Dorian sound. And if I wanted it to be Lydian on the same B flat Lydian, now I'm going to move my pentatonic shape so that I'm playing the root on, you see the major root there with a capital M. basically gives me a G minor pentatonic. And once again, I'm just exemplifying that raised note. Where are we? B flat. I'll be here. The X note is going to be the one that's the one that's the change. All right, so now if I take these three pentatonics and I join them together the way they're supposed to join up on the fretboard from 1 to 12, there's an octave. I've completed an octave of every note on the fretboard I could choose from. So what this does is it gives you a jamming play. So let's say where we were, we're in at B flat Mixolydian, and I want to know my whole fretboard. So now that I know I got my Dorian shape here, I've got Phrygian here, I've got a square right here. I can just go anywhere I want on the fretboard. And know whatever notes are available. From there, though, you still have to, that'll get you all across your fretboard in the scale, but you'll only be noodling. From there, you have to play with intention, and that's knowing that in any moment within that framework, there's going to be chord tones that are going to be relevant to what's going on. Something's out of tune there. It's not too bad. All right, so anyways, you get it. You would, know your chord tones. Then you can play with intention. No stepping stones, no chord tones. You can kind of make interesting melodies there because when I was moving around, I'm thinking chord tone, chord tone, chord tone, chord tone, chord tone, non-chord tone. Yeah. Those are gonna be rest, 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 no, rest, 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 tension, then resolve, 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 tension. Tension, yeah, release. So once you know that the difference between a chord tone and a stepping stone, there's going to be, if you're using a 3-note chord, there's going to be 3 chord tones and 4 stepping stones. If you're using a 4-note chord, a 7th chord, 1, 3, 5, and 7, then you have your 4 notes are inside and 3 notes will be stepping stones, and you're now controlling the tension and release in your lines. You have some intentionalism in your playing, and it'll sound like it. So that brings us right through that sheet of a whole ton of stuff there. But there's more. If you really want to know your fretboard, here's something you could know. Now, this is another one of my codes that are not really found anywhere on the internet on anybody else's lessons. So thank me later for this. Root, above it's always a 5. Below it's always that 4. That important root 4, 5 relationship. All root 4, 5. So anyways, so this shows you like which direction are your intervals in. A third is always going to be down there. Unless you're crossing the G to B string, then there's always that anomaly. But if not, that's always a third. That's always a flat third, on and on and on. So one thing, helpful thing to know your fretboard and to know like chords when you need like intervals for chords and stuff. Know your fretboard from root notes. So most likely your root note is going to be on the 6th string, on the 5th string, 4th string, and 3rd string. So root. I'm just going to pick a random note here. Doesn't matter. I'm on the 6th string, so we're on the tall run right here. Here's a 4. Here's my flat 7, flat 3, and a 5. So if I play this, there's that jazz grip of a minor chord. Why? It's root, skip the 4, it's a flat 7, flat 3, and a 5. That's why it's a jazz grip. It has a 7. Jazz uses 7 chords or 4-note chords more than rock with its just basic triad stuff. Or so now if I change that, that's all of these intervals are considered from that root. If I change that root, these intervals will change. But how would you find, what if I needed a 5 from this root? Well, there it is in our line there, but you can also think of these, all these intervals give you, the information you need to find the other intervals. So from here's a flat 7, you got a regular 7 and a root. There's your octave, right? There's another root. And this is why this chord exists. Now, a bar chord. But if you wanted to play it with a 4, for whatever reason you would want to do that. A 4 is going to be down here. A sharp 5 is going to be up here. A 6 is going to be right there. So you can find like different intervals are saying, hey, it's this chord has a 9 in it, flat 9 in it, a root, major third, flat third, 9, flat 9, right? So you can find all your roots like that. All your other, gives you almost access to almost every other interval you want just by doing some thinking from these known intervals. Just you got to memorize this pattern. So down here you'd find a flat 7, a 2, and a 5. Kind of an unusual chord there, so it's not really gives you this little suspended 7 sound though. Now you know why that chord would sound like the way it does. We're just leaving out the 4, playing everything else in that line. It's got a 2 in it, and it's got no 7, so it's like a suspended 2. Right. So from the down here, play all of. Now you got root 4, 6, 2. You got a root and just every competing outside scale step tone. So you can see why. Chord sounds just kind of like a jumble. Doesn't really have any really harmonious sound to it until now I got a 5 in there, and I'm we're doing something with it. But it's crowded. You're gonna find out that with these stepping stone intervals, the 2, the 4, and the 6, those want to be used selectively. Those are your intentional notes, and so you can find you can really pair up like 2 at a time starts to crowd up your logic, your line logic, I call it. Listen for yourself someday. All right, so without having to sit here and stall on it for an hour. So root 3 and 6 here. If I'm just down here, that has a sound to it because we're playing a root and a third. So we have a major dyad there, and then we're adding one stepping stone. And you can see how it's got something kind of cool to it. Now it's a major 6 chord. If I want to comp a song that's got a major 6 chord, I might just play that. If I gotta do something with a line, I might play that. It's gonna sound good over some kind of 6 chord. 6/9 chord. Right, so there. So you get to experiment with a whole bunch of now a bit more advanced sounding things just by knowing, taking your time to find out, map out intervals, take some graph paper, write some stuff down. All right, so here we once again have a list of intervals, and this is what I was talking about earlier when I said I had a better listing of what it was. So here we have a 4 can be an 11 when you're talking chords. Like if I just had a root, a 4 and a 5, or a root, a 4 and a 7, that's like a suspended chord. But I might have, a root, I might have some thirds in there, and then add in this 4 up high, I might have an 11 chord. And if I go north by one note, or raise the pitch by one semitone, I'd have a sharp 11. So we have that. You can see how the sharp 5 becomes the flat 13. So what this will help you know is like which interval, how to make this big information. Oh, it's a flat 13 chord. It's a 13 chord. It's just the 6. The flat 13 is just flatting that 6. And if you want to simplify your comping, sometimes you can really make a lot of complex stuff very simple by just learning to think like this, or see things for what they really are, and just pick smaller chunks of notes to clusters to play. You can find these things in small clusters, and that's where the jazz guys are getting all that stuff. All right, so moving on, we've got some there's another great YouTube channel out there. I've mentioned him before, and maybe I won't mention him again this time, but he's talking about the I can't even remember what he called it. The forbidden diagonals. So this may be something related to that. So that's why we're gonna keep a distance from what he's taught. But just great thing to know. Like, so here's minor, and this will be kind of a cool thing to know. Listen to this sound. Oops. So you can picture that as 1, 2, 3, and then connecting on the same fret. You got the top note of a root flat third 5. Can help you find a lot of other things just by knowing this dynamic. If you want to make it major, you might go. This helps you find the chord tones in wherever you are. You can see this is you can kind of fit pentatonic concepts in these shapes, so just something to experiment with without dragging the lesson time out too long. Going this way, here's an interesting angle here without as much use as what I'm going to show you next, but this goes. You hear like a kind of a progressive, or a Joe Satriani's used this trail of fifths. an extra 5 there, so we went root 5 2, go straight up to catch that 5, an octave above the 5 we just played, then the 6 and the root and the 5 again, and we need that 2 somewhere. Maybe we go something like that, just something to fool around with. But what's maybe more important is to know your tritone row here. And this is neat. The colors show that when you move in this direction, just keep on repeating the same 2 notes over and over and over in that diagonal. And it's the as is above, so is below. As soon as I get to, you can always know where your next diagonal is. If I go backwards, I start again up here, straight above, straight on the same fret from where I was, and I'm out of area on my fretboard. But anyways, so that row goes there. Now, how would that help you? Because it's just a tritone, and tritones are kind of weird, but tritones are actually where all the cool music happens in jazz, because tritones are the special interval that makes up that dominant chord. It's the only chord in the major scale that has that major third but the flatted 7, so it's kind of like half of a minor 7th chord and half of a major 7th chord, kind of like mixed together. And that little tritone interval has that particular weird availability of intervals that can happen. But we can't go too much into a jazz lesson here. But within this, the whole fretboard navigation system, this tritone row is in the center. I've taken away this idea of this alternating notes because we no longer want to focus on the tritone, because that's the leading tone, the 7, and the 4 of our scale. We may not want to concentrate on those, but we can see that is the glue that works for our navigation concept of our squares. It's in there. It's like Prego sauce. It's in there. Every time a square gets to the bottom or the top, because the 6 strings are the same, you can navigate to the second row. And find your way all across the fretboard that way. As you can see, there's only 2 rows, and the neatest row basically has a box on E and A, then D and G, and B and E. The broken box row has half a box on the E, the low E, and the high E. There is one normal box on the A and D strings, and then G and B have this funky broken box there. But this all becomes really easy because that broken box occurs in a scale you already know, a pattern we've already went over, called the Aeolian box. And you even get the every pentatonic, every one of them shapes has 2 of these squares in it, so you can navigate in different directions. So, for example, when I get to the bottom of that Aeolian, here we are on, let's say, E Aeolian. Oops. So here I have so now I've moved into this square box, which is this one, and that puts me in the Dorian shape. Once I'm down in this box, I can seamlessly, without even have to give it much thought, move into that Phrygian box. And this is basically going back to this, I think it was on the other page there, the this thing right here that we were just talking about. It's all the same thing. So if I added this end and this end which is what we showed in the beginning here when we went over this shape right here, this thing right here. I could complete the complete major scale that way. Or we could do it the way we just went over here with the 3 pentatonic shapes. This is just these overlapping ideas can make the fretboard very easy to navigate, very easy to know your whole fretboard, and that is the big deal that you spent your time watching this lesson to learn if you're new and didn't know that. Another handy dandy thing is to know your fretboard just in a pair, a bracket of 2 strings. There's this neat pattern here. You can kind of see, this is like C, D, E, F, G, A. Or if you think about it the other way, it's G, A, B, C, D, E. C, D, E repeats. The other 3 that are stacked, there's like this weird stack. So it's very easy. It's an easy geometry. But the FGA is part of, if you go back to your piano keyboard, let's take a look at that really quick. You can see there's C, D, E that surround these 2 black keys. But if you go over here on this side of the scale, there's F, G, A, B surrounding 3 black keys. So you have a stack or a line of 4 whole steps. And then C, D, E are 3 whole steps. And they're always parked together with that E, F. No black key in between those, just like B and C. And that's what makes up, by the way, this square on your fretboard. It's the B, C, E, F. So do you see how this is all coming together now? So that being said, you get this stack, but you'll get C, D, E always in the stack. But if it's on top, it's going to be F, G, A, and if it's on the bottom or toward the ceiling of your room, it's G, A, B, and then you would have the F, G, A, B. But the B falls in this little pattern here, this little tritone. It's the only place where that tritone occurs. And these shapes butt up against each other here, and you can think about inside there, they have this tritone, and then where they butt up again, the tritone is in between them. So let me kind of show you what I mean here. So if I was to play this right here, it'd be right here. The yellow and purple notes, then whoops, that's why that sounded off, because I screwed up the pattern there. Now it sounded cool because I played it right. But anyways, it's this green. You can just think of the green box like it's down here. C, D, E, F, G, A, and G, A, B, C, D, E. And then on one side, you have to use that tritone in between, the space in between where they don't butt up against each other. And on the other end, they butt up and make that B, C, E, F box, which is right here on your fretboard, where you can see, you remember, you got a B and an E string. So at the 12th fret, you got B and E, and then you got C and F, or B, C, E, F. Back to C. Alright, so then, on top of there, you've got this, also this stack right here is helpful to know. And then you'll have the square. So just play around and I just see all the different things that are occurring right there. If I And because I like, the CDE in the middle, the neat thing here with this stack, this gray stack that we're talking about where the plus sign is at the bottom of your screen, is this CDEs in the middle, the 3 notes. On the top, you have 4 notes where the 4th note is sticking out towards the pickups. And then going the other direction, you have with the 4th note being the dark gray, F in this case, going down toward the headstock. F, G, A, B, F, G, A, B. Alright, and then the light blue indicates the B, C, E, F, and once again, B, C, E, F. And you can see how you got all your tones right there in this structure here. Easy structures to find the complete major scale in when you're somewhere on your fretboard. And this gray structure is found when you're in between Dorian and the Phrygian scale. Here's a Dorian. Right there, Phrygian, straddling with the gray box. And back down to the C. Alright, so, in between the midst of all this, here's caged. This is your CA roots. Because you got for C shape, which is also the root for the A shape. Which is also going to lead you back to the G shape. C-A-G. Hard to finger, but. And then you got the E shape. C-A-G-E. And then from here, you got the D shape. Not so easy, but easy if you just play a little triad. Up here. And if you know that cage system, you can, eventually relate it to how it'll fit into all this stuff we're showing you, but you can break it down in these little triad shapes too as well. 3-5-1. Here I'll play it a little bit. Play it from the C. So 3-5-1, 5-1-3, and 1-3-5. So, and you can see how, I was noodling around there till it sounded done, and it sounded done when I got to the 1. Back on the 1. Alright, music. Sounds cool. Anyways, minor cage, just lower the 3rd. And here's what I was talking about let's wrap this lesson up now. One other thing, though, you might want to know is just hold on a second here. A, C. Just know, how to spell your chords. Learn this little 7-note alphabet. Learn the alphabet this way. A, C. Now, from a C, you can think A-C-E for an A chord. Now, from a C chord, C-E, G. From an E chord, E, G, B. From a G chord, G, B, D. From a B chord, B, D, F. From a D chord, D, F, A. And we're back to the A. And you have your spelling that'll help you through all your chord triads. Now, this occurs because these are all whole notes. These occur as they occur in the C major scale that we talked about, where the A is going to be a minor chord. That we can go back to your original diagram that we showed, if you forgot which ones are minor and major. A, C, E minor, C, E, G major, E, G, B minor, G, B, D, F major, and on and on. So we'll even go F, A, C. just so the F is complete there. Now, then all you know, since you know that ACE is the 6th of the C major scale, it's going to be minor. So you're all set with minor. But let's think about GBD. But the song is calling for a, you're playing something over G minor. What are the intervals that you're going to need? You're going to need to think about G, B flat, and D. G, B flat, and D. Right? To make it a G minor, G major, G minor. Right? So you just have to know once you know which ones of these are major and minor, and you got that memorized, then you can easily transform this thinking into whatever intervals. Hey, what's in a D minor chord? On DFA. What's in a D major chord? D F sharp A. Hey, what's in I need E major really fast. Well, EGB, but that's from E minor, from the C major scale, as an E minor. So if we need an E major, I'm going to need an E, a G sharp, and a B. So down here in my solo, I might think about I'm playing bending up to the 3rd. Alright, and that'll help you become a good guitar player. All of this information is the basics to understanding everybody's lesson on YouTube. I'm telling you, man. So just learn all this stuff and you've got it. Hopefully this wasn't too long for all of you, and I'll upload this shortly. And I thank you for watching. If this was helpful, consider donating, because this stuff costs me money that I really don't have. It's not a lot, but still a price tag I pay to have this Excel subscription, to have the subscription to Studio One to make all this, guitar stuff work. And so I could definitely use anybody's buy me a coffee, whatever you can throw at me in that link. Check out some merchandise though. Get something for yourself with your money. I don't make as much money off of that stuff, but we'll make a couple bucks if somebody buys some cool merch. At least check out the store so it gets some traffic, dudes and dudettes. It's got some cool tapestries that you can use in your studios if you're setting one up, check it out so you can tell me, hey man, I like this one image. It's this number, but can you make it, with this color background? And I can make some adjustment to it and make a cooler background. So let me know about that, and I guess I'll leave you guys with that. Check out the links in the description, and check me out on TikTok. I'm now a content creator on TikTok, making a whole bunch of random content, and my handle on TikTok, I'll try to put it in the link below. It's Reviewasaurus. Reviewasaurus. What the hell is Reviewasaurus? It's because I'm like this old dinosaurus that leaves a lot of reviews. That was like my Google Map thing. So anyways, thank you for watching. Again, people, appreciate you very much. And we'll go from there. Let me know in the comments what you'd like to see in another lesson, or what needs to be re-explained, and if this was just completely ridiculous. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.